Welcome to Beyond the Den, featuring Cha5m, a cybersecurity whiz and wolf game aficionado, now a Farmhands Council candidate. We'll dive into his vital role in game security, his plans for boosting wolves' value, and his vision for the council. Tune in for a deep dive into the future of wolf game with a key player in its evolution. All right, Cha5m, how are you, my friend?
Good, thanks. How you doing, Dio?
I'm great. Happy Saturday. Thanks for jumping on.
Likewise.
Give the audience a little bit of a background of who you are and what got you into the crypto and NFT space.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hey everyone, my name is Cha5m. You've probably seen me around the Wolf Game Discord, typically shit posting and things like that, but been in the crypto space for a while. So, day one Wolf Gamer. I like to brag about the fact that I think I was the 11th person to ever post in the Wolf Game Discord.
Nice.
And from those, I'm like fifth of still active accounts. So, like to claim my OG tag there, but
Sure.
yeah, my kind of crypto origin story begins back in 2012. I was in college at the time, kind of in a nerdy program, so I started to hear these rumblings about this thing called Bitcoin. I was like, "What? Like, what's that?" And I had like a not even good at the time gaming computer. I think I had like a 1080 GPU in there or something. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, maybe I'll give this mining thing a try. So mined a little bit of Bitcoin, bought some here and there. Like most people, I sold everything way too early. Whatever I didn't sell, I unfortunately lost in the Mt. Gox hack.
Hmm.
So
Wow.
that's still kind of ongoing, the settlement with that. So maybe I'll see some of that again someday. Can buy some wool with it or something. But
Yeah. Did you lose a lot in that?
it wasn't a ton. I had sold most of what I had.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was like under 10 Bitcoin or something, which now
Uh-huh.
that seems like a lot, but at the time
Yeah.
it wasn't super significant.
It's crazy.
So that really kind of soured me to the whole crypto space for a while there, and then I came back in 2015 with Ethereum. So once again, with Ethereum, sold most of what I bought way too early. Kind of held on to some of it until I started seeing this thing called crypto kitties, and I was like, "Oh, crypto kitties! Like, what is this? I can breed cats on
Mm-hmm.
Ethereum? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what?" So yeah, I was day one into crypto kitties, and I always say that cave game is the most fun that I've had in the crypto space, but
Amen.
day one or two of CryptoKitties is definitely up there because it was just pure insanity. I have a Google Docs spreadsheet of just every cat that I bought, every cat that I bred, and then every cat that I sold. And I was looking at kind of my profit and loss from the first couple days of CryptoKitties. I think I spent a total of 48 Ethereum buying these CryptoKitties, which I then used to breed. I didn't sell any of the cats that I actually bought, only the offspring. In those first couple of days, I sold them for 58 ETH, which is insane. And again, I
Wild.
quickly kind of exited that position on ETH when it was still way too cheap. I still have most of my crypto kitties. I think I have like 20 some Gen Zero virgin crypto kitties, so
Hmm.
maybe they'll be worth something again someday since they're kind of like the
Yeah.
OG
They will
NFTs,
be.
if you will. Well, not
Yeah.
OG. There's punks and all that, but yeah, that was kind of my introduction to NFTs and Web3 gaming and that kind of thing.
Wow.
And
That's quite a
so
story, man. I mean,
yeah,
it's like it seems like you have had the skill of seeing things early.
yeah, I've
What were some of your thoughts with Wolf Game when you saw that come out?
Yeah, so after CryptoKitties, kind of Pixel Vault was my next big endeavor into
Okay.
NFTs. I kind of like after CryptoKitties crashed and they just kind of abandoned it. That again kind of soured me to things for a while, and then I saw Pixel Vault, and I was like, "Oh, this is really cool." And this character, like so many others, named Beanie,
Hmm.
was kind of the one in there dropping all the alpha and those fun times. So I forget if it was directly in Beanie's Discord that he started like GM Capital or whatever it was,
Hmm.
or if it was in the Pixel Vault Founders DAO. Yeah, I remember him kind of teasing Wolf Game as a
Yeah.
project, and
Yep.
he was like, "Oh, can anyone find the Discord? Can anyone find the site? Like, I can't believe no one's found it." And I think it was actually Bry who was the first
Hmm.
one to find it. I think he dropped that link in the Pixel Vault Founders down. yeah, jumped in there right away. And I was looking back in preparation for this of like what I minted, what I bought, that kind of thing. I only
Mm-hmm.
actually minted 5 sheep, which didn't have great mint luck there. I wish I would have minted more.
Mm-hmm.
But then in that, I think it was like a day two dip when they dropped down to like 0.02 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I picked up some more. And yeah, I've just
Nice.
been in Wolf game ever since.
Very cool. So, Chasm, why are you running for the Farmhands Council?
I think I kind of have a unique perspective on Wolf Game. There's a lot of people who have very similar thoughts and feelings towards what Wolf Game can be, what it should be, kind of the low hanging fruit that can be addressed to really
Mm-hmm.
make Wolf Game realize its potential. I've kind of had a different experience with Wolf Game. I'm a huge cybersecurity nerd, so kind of anytime I'm looking at new games or just really browsing the web in general. I a lot of times have a proxy set up next to it just so I can kind of see the traffic that's being sent back and forth with the server, that kind of thing. You know, like back in the early days, I'd be that asshole on the Flash game scoreboard that would have a score of like 99999 up at the top of the leaderboard, and like, like
You're
how's
just
how's
toying
this
with people.
happening?
Yeah. Interesting.
So I kind of just instinctually being in Wolf Game to this point, and then once Full Game launched, I was just kind of looking at some of this traffic, and yeah, I saw some interesting things there, and started fiddling around with it, and I ended up discovering a couple vulnerabilities within the game itself. So I think that kind of unique technical perspective of actually looking under the hood at Wolf Game, kind of figuring out what the protocols look like, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
how those impact the game. I think having that kind of experience would be beneficial to the Farmhand Council. In addition to that, just I've been in crypto a long time. I've been in Wolf Game a long time, so I've been through the ups and downs, and I just think I have a lot to offer from an experience perspective.
Yeah. Very interesting. So you have a great skill in looking under the hood of things, the nuts and bolts, if you will. Can you talk a little bit about those bugs that you found early on?
Yeah, I would love to. And I've written a Medium post on a couple of them that kind of takes a deep dive into all the technical aspects of it if anyone's interested. But there were a couple more that I've never really talked about publicly just because at the time the game was kind of in a fragile state. I had reported these things to Shep. Shep kind of asked me to maybe hold off on disclosing some of these for the time being just so they could get them taken care of. It didn't like hurt the reputation of the game or
Hmm.
anything. So yeah, I can talk about those and the ones from that Medium post. So yeah, so these vulnerabilities really fell into two categories, and these are kind of common web application vulnerabilities, if you will.
Hmm.
The first vulnerability type was input validation. So input validation vulnerabilities kind of present themselves when the application or backend server is not properly validating what the user is actually sending to the game. So if you think about like a modern web architecture, you have your front end client, which would be the game itself. So all of the HTML, the JavaScript, the buttons that you're actually clicking on the screen, that kind of thing. And then in the middle, you have this API layer, which in Wolfgame's case, they use a framework called Prisma, which is basically just, it gives developers a structured way to send data between the game and a backend data source. In Wolfgame's case, that backend data source is a database because it is kind of a Web 2 game that uses Web 3 assets. That backend data source, if it was like a true Web3 game, could also be the blockchain. It varies. But basically, what happened in these input validation vulnerabilities is the game was not checking what data it was actually being provided. So
Hmm.
a couple of these that I reported, and there were a bunch of them. So like because they were using this framework, if there's one of these types of vulnerabilities, there's probably a bunch of them. But for example, I think that the first one I reported was the ability to set an arbitrary tax rate. So what you could do was in your community, you could set your land tax rates to be anything. So for example, you could set the tax rate to be 1 million, which even if you had one plot of land in a community, setting one of those to 1 million, and then it averages out, you're still going to end up with like a 10,000% tax rate or something like that.
Hmm.
So if you have an animal collecting in that community, you collect those resources, they're taxed at 10,000%. You're kind of generating resources out of thin air. So,
Wow.
and
Fascinating.
yeah, you're going to end up with some extra resources there. Another thing you could do is actually set a negative tax rate. So, again, same thing, just other direction. You're also creating uh, resources out of thin air.
Hmm.
The other big area that this input validation vulnerability occurred was in the community silos. So when you contribute resources to a community silo, there's a post request that's sent. It has a couple different parameters in the body. Those are the type of resource that you're sending. So grass, stone, water, whatever it might be. In addition to that, it's the second parameter is the amount of that resource that you're sending. And that's typically a positive integer. So if you want to send 1 water, it's going to be a 1. If you want to send 400 water, it's going to be 400. You could actually make this a negative integer. And what it would do was take those resources out of the silo. So you could go around to every community, pop into their silos, act like you're going to contribute resources to their silo, just flip that number to be negative, and then actually take those resources out of their silo for yourself. Um,
Wow.
so that was kind of another big one, and there were a couple different areas where these vulnerabilities actually presented themselves.
Hmm.
Um,
Did you ever find yourself like a battle of good and evil where you could be like, I need to expose this, but I can't do it? Like,
it's
yeah, walk us back with that.
it's a daily thought. So my day job is a penetration tester. So I kind of hack companies for a living, show them where they're vulnerable, so they can then go back and fix these kind of things. And it is a daily thought. Like, wow, if I was a black hat, I could be retired, living on an island, and not
Hmm.
have to worry about any of this. But it's just something that you get used to, and there's kind of this ethics standard in the profession that
Yeah.
it's not really something that I ever seriously considered. So
Hmm.
yeah, as soon as I found those things, I sent them over to the team so they could get them patched up pretty quick.
Wow, that's cool. You're like an angel at that point.
No,
That the
it's fun.
ability to do that is, and to think, were you at an early age into just, computers and coding, and like what got you into your specific career?
Yeah, I kind of have a typical nerd origin story. So I had an old Apple IIe computer in my bedroom growing up, and I'd just like sit in there, have a book with like different basic programs that you could like text-based adventure games and things like that. So like I'd write those kind of things when I was
Huh.
a kid, and then yeah, just growing up again, kind of hacking on Flash games and different fun things like that. I didn't seriously get into cybersecurity until college, actually. And I went to Penn State, and I originally went in there undecided, not really knowing what I wanted to do. And then I had an older brother who kind of directed me into cybersecurity. He's like, "Hey, check this out. This is a cool field. There's lots of
Mhm.
jobs, good pay, that kind of thing." Started taking some classes there. I got involved with a club, which was kind of like a cyber competition club where we would do hacking competitions and things like that. And I was like, "Wow, this is actually really awesome." So you can just like hack for a living, and yeah, the rest is kind of history.
Hmm. That's awesome, dude.
Yeah,
I
it's
love hearing these stories, man. It's so fascinating, and the fact that you're on Beyond the Den right now and just letting the community know who you are, nobody would guess that. So I think that this is very powerful to have you on, brother.
yeah, no, I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we could spend a whole episode going down that rabbit hole, but let's keep it geared towards your candidacy. So you mentioned an emphasis in driving value to wool in your Twitter thread. What specific strategies do you propose to balance the wool economy?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to preface this by saying that I am a realist about what role the Farmhands Council is going to serve. We're there to kind of be bumpers for what the team is developing. I'm not an economist. I took an economics class in college, but that's about the extent of my formal economics training. I trust G-Funk and Goose and the team to kind of lead the charge with actually driving that value to wool. But there are a lot of kind of low-hanging fruit, if you will, that I think can be addressed to really complete that loop and drive value to wool in the short term. First of all, I would just say I think once they actually give us a leaderboard, that's going to go a long way towards driving that value to wool and kind of completing that loop. Anyone who plays Peak now, you know, it's kind of a struggle to even get a single tournament bracket
Sure.
filled, and I think a lot of that just has to do that people are tired of burning wool and not really knowing if they're ever going to see that coming back to them. So I think having a leaderboard, knowing what that reward structure is actually going to look like, would go a long way towards incentivizing people to play the game. And that just kind of increases activity across the board. And yeah, that would kind of be the first thing. In addition to that, just addressing the resource inflation issue. And again, I think that kind of ties into to just yeah, there's been different ideas thrown around about how this should actually be done. Kind of having some back and forth with G Funk in Discord a couple days ago, just about different concerns with that. The big topic there is always the water exploit, if you will, that Seed Phrase was very wisely able to identify and take advantage of. So yeah, obviously it's something that would need to appease Seed as well as the community. So there's challenges there, but I have complete confidence that the team can take care of this.
Yeah. You talked about some dopamine hits and bringing that back into the gameplay. Can you elaborate on how you might plan to reintroduce these
Yeah,
exciting moments?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I first of all encourage everyone to go back and read the Wolf Game V1 white paper because it's just amazing like how genius those tokenomics were and how addictive it was. Like just the idea that anyone with a single sheep could potentially breed an A8, you know, or like an A7. So you had a 10% chance when you were breeding to randomly breed a wolf. And then from that, there's a chance that it could be any of the different wolf levels. In addition to that, if you did have a wolf, the possibility that you could possibly randomly steal someone else's breed, like you just go to bed at night, wake up in the morning, and you have this random animal in your wallet. It's like, whoa, where'd this come from? This is so
Sure.
cool. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that kind of thing. And then we got hit with that again in Cave Game. So I'm a big proponent of bringing Cave Game back. And I know it's kind of a hot topic right now after Beanie's tweet the other day. And I completely do not dismiss the argument that the reason that Cave Game was so much fun is that there was a huge incentive to find these gems that had crazy value at the time. Like if you found a Big Daddy gem, I forget what they were actually going for at the time, but it was like what a half ETH at least, or one ETH, or something crazy. So I don't know if you can really recreate that exactly, but I think what we do need to go for is a certain flavor of fun, and that flavor of fun being kind of the degen tokenomics fun. Like I definitely think there's a place where we can have a fun in the traditional gaming sense, fun, cozy gaming game with a layer of degen tokenomics on top of that kind of beckon back to the days of V1, Cave Game, that kind of thing. And I think there's different ways that we can recreate that, both by bringing Cave Game back as well as just kind of traditional Valley and Peak games.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that Valley, right? And the gameplay, but also how are we going to attract new players?
Yeah, I think, and not to keep going back to this, but I think to attract new players, you need to give them the opportunity to go from a single sheep that they buy for zero point zero 0.05 ETH to a huge bag. So again, the chance that you have this single sheep, or maybe it takes two sheep, I don't know, but like maybe you can randomly breed a sheep with a one of one skin or something like that. And just like if someone wants to come into wolf game today, what is there for them? There's not a whole lot. They can
Hmm.
have two sheep and just sit there for months on end, kind of grinding away at the valley, collecting resources, but then, oh, I don't have a structure plot, so I can't actually do anything with these resources. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
maybe I can swap them into wool and recharge my animals, but then what? Like the cycle starts all over. So yeah, really giving new players something to work towards.
Hmm.
And I do think that a properly designed peak with a leaderboard where they can see, oh, maybe I don't have to grind the valley, but if I have success here in the peak, I can get this reward, which will then kind of spin off into going back to the valley and using whatever that reward may be back in the valley.
Hmm. Yeah. Wow. This is, just so much awesome information. How about community engagement, right? It's crucial. So, thinking about that, what would be your plans for integrating community built tools into the
Yeah,
game?
so honestly, the thing that I think the glue that really holds Wolf Game together is the community. And that kind of takes a couple different forms. So first of all, like the people and just the social aspect of Wolf Game, the Wolf Game live events back in the day. I never personally got to attend them, unfortunately,
Hmm.
but I've heard awesome things about them. And then the Discord itself. There's just so many cool people that I love to hang out with. Like I used to frequent five different discords, but that's pretty much boiled down to only Wolf Game now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just because I like hanging out with these people. Like
Sure.
it's great. But then kind of the second half, as you were saying, of that community aspect is the builders. And that's what really like sucked me in and has kept me in Wolf Game so long. I don't know of any other community with so many
Nope.
talented builders and not just technical builders, but also artists. Like we have people creating just like
Hmm.
world class GIFs and
Hmm.
things like that. Like Bunya, Term, I'm gonna forget people, so I
Sure.
apologize. But like the artists are crazy, and then you have people creating these tools, like Val, Jay Steezy.
Hmm.
It's just amazing how much talent there is in this community.
Hmm.
So I really hope that the Pixel Vault team can kind of recognize the talent that we have in the community and either directly work with these people to integrate some of these features into the game or just kind of work with them to make these tools available to everyone.
Hmm.
Like Wolfgame Power Tools, it's such a good tool, but at the same time, like it's paywalled, if you will. There's a membership token,
Sure.
which I completely support. Like
Yeah.
paying these creators. But like a lot of people, like it's going back to the new players. Like it might be a struggle for a new player.
It is, very intimidating, this ecosystem, right?
Yep.
And then hearing that people have these tools, you're automatically going, well, why the hell would I do this? Right? I mean, I'm going to get slammed.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
the onboarding is so important on how we do this. And I do believe that Goose is the guy that could do this. I really do. And with the help of the team and the community. So,
Yep.
yeah.
No, I totally agree with you there. If you just look at Goose's track record, like he obviously has the experience in this area as far
Yeah,
as tokenomics and that kind of thing go to really make Wool skyrocket.
sure.
And then if anyone's had the chance to play Battle Plan, if you haven't already,
It's
go sign
awesome.
up for the trial because that's just such an impressive, polished product.
Yeah.
And it really gives me a lot of hope for what Wolf Game can become.
Right. From the look to the even just the sound effects in the game, just everything is top
Yep.
notch.
Yeah, and
The
it's
detail is crazy.
right, and that's kind of I've played a few different Web3 games, and that's not typical of
Hmm.
Web3 games. You know, usually they're just trying to ship, get something out the door, and
Yeah.
yeah, Pixelbolt's received a lot of criticism for kind of dragging their dragging their feet, delaying releases, that kind of thing. But I think it's going to be worth it in the end, just from what I've seen from Battle Plan.
Yeah. And being in cybersecurity, there's a part of your brain that you can't turn off, which is the attention to detail, right? I mean, it's like that is extremely important. So one character off in a code is throws everything off, right? So
Yep.
so it's amazing to see what they've built in such really in the grand scheme of things, right? Short amount of time, but
Right. Yeah.
people
Yeah.
just need to change their expectations in this space, right? We've
Yep.
been we've been blasted in the face with that. That's for sure.
Right.
So
Yeah.
so when you first discovered these bugs early on, right? How was it like when you were reaching out to Shep? Did you reach out to him individually? Like, and then what's your conviction on Shep? And do you think he's still with the team?
Yeah. Yeah. So when I was originally reporting these bugs, I kind of, I think at first I just dropped in general chat like, hey, who from the team can I talk to about these things? 'Cause I obviously knew it was an issue, and I think it was Za that was like, just DM me, I'll pass them up to Shep. But then like as I started to dig in deeper, and more of these issues were being identified, I started going directly to Twitter DMs. So every interaction I had was just directly through DMs, basically sending these bugs over to them. So that's kind of how that interaction took place.
Hmm.
I do think that Shep is still present in some regards. I don't know. I've flip flopped back and forth because originally I was like that, like there's no way the original Shep is still here. Just looking at the delivery timelines, like pre full game, and like how quickly they were putting out cave game, how quickly they put out the like pouches, how quickly
Hmm.
they did alpha game, that kind of thing. And then once full game release, that cadence of shipping new features and new
Sure.
aspects of the game kind of really slowed down. So I was like, maybe this isn't the same team anymore. I don't know, but
Hmm.
at the same time, I think Shep may have just gotten burned out on everything, which is completely understandable. The Web3 community is not the easiest customer to appease, so
Yeah.
no hard feelings there. Shep has given us an amazing community, an amazing game, so absolutely no hard feelings there either way.
Yeah. Yeah. What was your original take on the code once you looked into it? Was it like next level? Because there are people in the community that thought that that was just on a whole different atmosphere as far as written code. Like, was it in your mind to that point? And we can add this if you want, but like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, was it that amazing?
Yeah, I honestly I haven't done a whole lot of digging into the Solidity code itself. I don't do a whole lot of code review.
Mm-hmm.
My expertise is kind of more on the dynamic testing side. So looking at the actual interactions with the API and backend
Okay.
database and that kind of thing. But yeah, from everything I've heard, like especially like the innovation with pouches and that kind of thing was just very impressive.
Yeah, it really is for sure. I think those pouches will hold up in the future. They will be just like a grail, and I think people just getting rid of them too early on is going to come up to bite them, right? I mean,
Yep.
if this is essentially the first risk protocol on the blockchain, it has to think 10, 15 years down the road, even that soon, right? It's like we're going to look back at this and be it's going to have that provenance. It's
Totally.
inevitable.
I completely agree. And I think people are really undervaluing pouches now, especially those original risky game pouches.
Hmm.
I don't think people are really thinking about, oh, we're already halfway through the vesting schedule of these pouches. So like they're gonna whatever wool is in there is gonna really be dripping over the next 2 years.
Yeah.
Um, but I hope we haven't seen the end of pouches. One thing I do want to say is that I hope that once rewards are reintroduced, just to kind of address the, I'm not an economist, but to address the supply and demand
Sure.
issues with wool. I hope those rewards are pouched because I think that could really address the wool liquidity issues that we're facing today.
Hmm. Yeah. They definitely have to have an incentive attached to them for sure,
Yep.
right? We've proven that we can lock up items if there is a incentive. It could be the incentive just in wool, however, wool needs to go up, right?
Yep. Yeah, and I'm glad you said that because I also hope we see staking return in some form, whether that be, I've heard interesting ideas thrown out there like staking wool to vote. So I think that's one interesting
Hmm.
aspect that you could kind of put like a governance twist on the staking. I also have had this idea, and I've dropped this in general chat a couple times, but like in some of the GIFs, we were teased a Squid Game. So, to kind of address the animal inflation issue, I would love to see a game, whether it's like cave game or something else, where we can take our G2s and stake them to this game to participate in the game. So we'll just use cave game for example. So maybe you stake your G2s to cave game,
Hmm.
and then it's a cave game where your G2s are running around the cave trying to collect resources, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
But maybe wolves also have access to this cave, so they're running around the cave trying to catch these G2 sheep as they're collecting these resources. And then maybe if they get caught by the wolves, they're automatically burnt, and those chops are sent to the wolf that caught them or something like that.
Hmm.
I think there's a lot of fun things that could be done with staking. So
Hmm.
I do hope that we see that return in
Yeah.
some form.
Yeah. And taking something of lesser value in the G2s. Because if
Right.
we, the idea of losing your NFT hurts a
Right.
lot,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? But if it's a G2, then you have the emotional tie of the breeding end of it, and that's really more time. And the amount of wool that it's taken to breed really isn't that much in the grand scheme, especially at the current moment, right? So I think if we, yeah, that would be super interesting to add in like the risk of losing with G2s. I mean, you love them, but there's people burning them all the time, right, for
Right. Yeah.
chops. So,
Yep.
and then you got to look at pelts. Like, what are pelts?
Yeah.
Where are we
What
going with that? It's interesting,
there's so much yet to come and to be
right?
excited about. So
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's why we're doubling down, right?
yep.
We're spending the time on especially on a Saturday like this, being like, okay, I'm away from my wife and kids and whatever. It's like, I want to do this because and you can't explain it to anybody outside of this game. You
Oh yeah.
really can't. Even in
My
the
wife
NFT
thinks I'm
space,
crazy.
you can't, right? Yeah. So you talk about creating dank memes. Can you share a bit about your favorite meme creation?
Oh man. I So I'll say my favorite one is definitely not one of mine. Again, there's so many awesome creators in the community that like my memes are pretty low effort, and they're more timely. So I like to whip something up in a couple minutes, just to, like reply to a comment or something like that. So
Hmm.
um, probably my favorite is the someone like when Term was doing his stream, someone snapped Term's reaction to something,
He's like,
and then yeah,
is that one
yeah.
where,
So someone clip that.
yeah.
So yeah, it's just the like my reaction to that information. Like I think there's so many situations where that's applicable, and then that's kind of like spun off its own sub memes off of that. So
Hmm.
yeah, big fan of that one.
I love it, man. I think you should really start honing in on that even more. I don't know what the hell people were saying about me. They were calling me Himony or Timothy or whatever the fuck. I'm like, who
Yeah.
the hell is Timothy? And what is Himony? And, and they thought it was hilarious. And I was like, all right, I'm missing this. But like, it'd be funny to just, and it's about creating these community driven memes within our community that only the community understands,
Right. Yeah.
right?
It makes
It
absolutely
separates
no
us.
sense to anyone else. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So, can you share an unexpected fact about yourself for the Wolf Game community?
I guess I once stayed standing in a wake for 46 straight hours.
Wow.
Yeah, I was a part of a charity fundraiser. So
Huh.
it was supposed to be a dance marathon, but it more so turned into just like standing around trying to survive. So yeah, I guess
Interesting.
that's
And were
fun.
you allowed food and water?
We did get food and water.
Okay.
Yeah, and there were bathroom breaks, but you were timed and they were not enjoyable. So um,
Jeez. Who won? What time frame was that?
so it was actually capped at 46
Oh,
hours.
okay.
Like if you made it to 46 hours, it was
Damn.
just over. So
That's
yeah.
intense, man. If the Farmhands Council were a sports team, what role would you play and why?
All right, so I've watched a lot of your interviews. I every time you would ask this, I would think about what my answer would be. So I was kind of flip flopping back and forth between it's going to be football either way. So I was either like left tackle, so like I'm just kind of there in the background, like protecting the backside, like making sure nothing bad happens. But my answer is going to be strong safety. So I actually played strong safety in high school. Did used to be somewhat of an athlete, but I, and my reason for that is I feel like, strong safeties are back there. They're kind of one of the last lines of defense.
Hmm.
But at the same time, they're not scared to come up and make a big hit or play the run. So I don't necessarily need to be the wide receiver that's out there catching the touchdowns and doing the dances, but
Yeah, Ron
every now
Tidwell.
and then I'm yeah, not afraid to come up and cover a tight end and make a hit.
Cool. Love that, man. And it runs in line with your background in cybersecurity too.
Yep.
How about a high pressure situation you've navigated and the lessons you've learned?
Yeah, so having a 10-month-old, I feel like my entire life is a high pressure situation, but I'll go i- in my day job. There's a lot of kind of high pressure situations because we're doing these penetration tests for like huge organizations with 50,000 employees, that kind of thing. And just kind of the nature of work that we're doing, like there's a pretty good chance that something's going to be wrong because we're like going into these production environments trying to exploit different vulnerabilities.
Yeah, that's what you're paid to do. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So there's been certain situations where things have gone wrong with that. Like one example that comes to mind is we were doing a penetration test for a huge organization. Again, it was one of those like 50,000 employee organizations. And all of a sudden, we get a phone call and it's like, hey, we have no internet access. What's going on? Like, we literally can't, like, our business stops if we don't have internet access.
Hmm.
So on these teams, I typically work as a team lead. So I'll have three people working underneath me. So it was a pretty quick process of actually triaging what the actual issue was here, working with my team,
Hmm.
working with the customer, figuring out what was going on. It turns out there was some like weird routing rule where we were scanning their network, but like every time we hit a system that wasn't actually there, it would try to route our traffic externally, like out onto the internet for some
Hmm.
weird reason.
Hmm.
And what had happened was we just like totally flooded their firewall and exhausted the state table there. So
Hmm.
their firewall crashed. So none of their traffic on their network was actually able to egress out onto the internet. So
Wow.
that was fun, and they weren't super happy about it, but we survived.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. Were you fully transparent with them too?
Yeah, yeah, that's something I've learned. Like, we straight up before we begin these things, we say we don't anticipate any issues, but like the the possibility is always there. So I guess they're kind of half expecting it as we're coming in. The bad thing is that leads to them a lot of times blaming us for things that we're not doing. So if like any system crashes while we're doing this testing, it's
Hmm.
automatically our fault. So
Hmm.
there's good and bad to that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. What about just a common misconception about yourself?
Yeah, so I would say a common misconception is that I'm just kind of a goofball all the time and don't have trouble taking things seriously sometimes.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm not afraid to get down to business and be serious when the time comes. If anyone looks at my Discord post history, that would probably become apparent that I sometimes struggle with the serious side of things. But yeah, if it comes down to the Farmhands Council, I'm not afraid to put this game face on and get down to business.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of, we're all characters, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
We're all wearing masks throughout our
Yep.
whole life, right? And just in any circumstance. So for you to kind of like be fun and your wacky side, I think that's cool for sure. Imagine you could travel back to the launch of, say, even just full game. What's one piece of advice that you would give your past self?
going back way to the beginning of Wolf Game, I would tell myself one, mint more than I did. Uh, Two, maybe don't lock up my sheep during that initial supply crunch when sheep ran to like 8 ETH or whatever they were. Like,
Oh man.
just keep a couple of these in the wallet to maybe take a
Yeah,
little
don't
off
go
the
full
table.
degen. Yeah.
Yeah. That was pretty frustrating when I saw
Hmm.
the sheet floor,
Hmm.
um, and then
You couldn't do anything about it.
couldn't do anything about it.
Oh
Just
man, it's
collecting my wool.
yeah,
Um,
and you're trying to explain it to other people, and it's
yeah,
just they're like, "Why can't you take it out? What the
yeah,
hell?
yeah.
What a scam! This is ridiculous!" And you're like, "You don't understand. It's not a scam. It's not
Right.
a scam."
Yep. Yeah. No, but besides that, I would just tell myself to like be patient in accumulating
Yeah,
assets.
yeah.
Um, because I was again looking back through my Wolf Game transaction history, and I think like at the launch of Full Game,
Hmm.
I was buying sheep for like 1.2 ETH.
Yep,
I'm like, maybe don't go all in. Like we're playing the long game here. Like,
it's true.
just gently accumulate. And besides that, I was not a big believer. I was watching Wolf's interview, and I know he was like convinced that, oh yeah, these sequential lands, like this is going to be the way to go. I was not a big believer that was going to be the case. Turns out he was right. I was very wrong. I wish that I would have kind of had more sequential lands. I've spent a ton to kind of accumulate lands in one community since then. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I would say, hey, focus on one community here.
Yeah, yeah. Hone in,
Yep.
diversify, but hone in.
Right.
Right.
Totally.
What about some last words that you want to leave to the voters?
Yeah, I'll just say that, like, we have so many awesome candidates. To go back to the community thing, like, this is an awesome community. And the people who threw their hat in the ring for Farmhand Council, like, they're some of the best. So I don't think there's a possible combination of 10 people that you can take from that list
Hmm.
that would give you a bad Farmhands Council. So, like, uh, no hard feelings if I don't make it. Obviously, I would love to be in there and give my 2 cents for the Farmhands Council, but like, I have complete faith that whoever does get picked is gonna do an awesome job. I'll still be here one way or the other, and I'm really looking forward to the future Wolf game.
Yeah, man. You said that there are amazing candidates. It's really going to be hard to choose the 10. And it may not be the best 10, on the council.
Right.
So the fact though that you're putting yourself out there and getting the community to understand who you are opens you up to so many different opportunities, right? And we're going to gamify this whole freaking ecosystem, right? And from the social fi end, so it's really cool to kind of make these friendships and to make these bonds, and also for the community to really understand who Cha5m is, and even having you doing the face to face, I think is very powerful. There's a lot of people that are like, oh, am I going to really dox? This is the first time I'm doxing in this wild west. But kudos to you, man, for doing it. I went back and forth with whether or not I should dox. I'm almost naked right now,
Yeah.
so it is what it is. you know?
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you giving us this platform because I think that just further strengthens our community. Like now we have all these people in our community who are already kind of, I don't want to say community leaders because I don't think our community should have any leaders per se, but like
Yeah.
very well-known people in this community. And now we can actually put a face and a voice to these different names that we see popping up in Discord. So
Right.
I think this platform that you've given everyone has only further strengthened the community. And yeah, I think these interviews are going to age very well as
Mm.
Wolf Game continues to grow and kind of the OGs here become even more legendary in the community.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are going to look back on these and kind of another thing is it lets everyone know where all of these people stand on the different kind of issues in the game. So yeah, I just think it's invaluable and can't thank you enough.
Yeah, man. Thank you. I like to go on walks before I get on these and just think and put some, just some music on. And I just was like, just thinking so many different thoughts of, okay, that would be really cool if we did this. There should be some really strong entrance music. There should be, so there's, and like, how can we stir up some commotion, and you know, a lot of people like the conflict and the, you know, and the lore behind things. So I think that there's so much room for experimenting, and there will be more content creators that come out that are actually doing video or audio. I know Begin, he's a freaking character, that guy.
Oh yeah.
I want to try to get him on, go back and forth, but this is just whatever it is your strong suit. I mean, just go for it and just start creating. And yeah, man, I love the fact that you talked about the Farmhand Council being a bumper, right? And you are the epitome of that. Like, hey, Cha5m, what's going on? Is this going to work, or is this contract legit? Okay. We have a guy that literally will pick it apart and tell you whether or not it's right, or if it has holes or whatever it may be. So yeah, it's invaluable, man.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that and always happy to help.
Hey everyone, what is up? It is Digital Optimist here. I just want to say thank you so much for joining us on Beyond the Den. Quick favor to ask, hit that subscribe button. When you hit that subscribe button, that's going to allow me to attract top tier guests to provide you with the most value possible. Give me a follow over on X at Digital Optimist.